You're listening to a teaching from Get the Word Out and Mary Jean Powers. For more information and audio content, visit www.getthewordout.cc.
So we're talking about spiritual disciplines. Two words that sometimes in our thinking go like this. Spiritual and discipline, really. Discipline's not our favorite word, huh? In most cultures, it's not our favorite word. It challenges us. It pushes back on us. So let's start right from the beginning saying spiritual disciplines are activities. They are activities. They're not attitudes. They are things we do, not an attitude we have. They are practices, something that we practice doing. Spiritual disciplines are things we do. They're not character qualities. They're actions. It's active. They require something of us. Spiritual disciplines are not the fruit of the Spirit. It's something we do. So something spiritual because God is spirit, right? We're made in His image. And because He designed us and because He designed these disciplines for our best good, then our choice is to trust Him. That's the option we have. That's the invitation, better word. We have the invitation, will you trust me, God says, by disciplining yourself in the way I designed you to function best. What a God. How good He is to say, if this, then that. If my way, then health will come. Various kinds of health that we'll talk about today. So, spiritual disciplines. We can't separate the word discipline from the word disciple, right? It's very close to the same word. To be disciplined without discipleship is going to bring a problem. To be discipled without discipline is going to bring a problem. So let's talk about this word discipline. Best definition I've ever heard before is this: loving myself enough to do what's best for me. Now, if I love myself from God's perspective enough to do what is best for me, then that's going to change my thinking in this way. I'm going to think, then I will be willing to lay down the good things for the best things. I'll be willing to set aside things that are simply good, enjoyable, fine, they're all right. But if there's better, in fact, if there's best, we would be foolish to not choose it, wouldn't we? Yeah. So discipline says, I will love myself enough. I choose to love myself enough. I choose to believe what God has said about me, and I choose to believe that my Maker knows how I best function. So will I trust Him by doing the activity that He says will bring about the greatest health, that will bring about best for me? Does that make sense? You following? Okay. So even though we're videotaping this, you can at least say, or something. You do need to breathe, all right? So am I willing? Am I willing to do the activities and trust God in them, the spiritual disciplines? Now, if I choose discipline without discipleship, then I lose a lot of joy, huh? Have you seen that in your own life? That if you're just doing the discipline, what does it feed? It feeds pride. Yeah? If I'm just doing the discipline, but I miss the heart behind discipleship, which is come live life with Jesus, His way. If I just choose the discipline, but I don't choose the discipleship, and I don't choose community, the community, because discipleship's in the context of community, right? If I just choose the discipline, I become legalistic. It feeds my pride. And I quickly lose joy because it's task. But if I choose discipleship without discipline, I am a very weak and shallow person. I want to be discipled. I want to be a disciple of Jesus, but I don't want to discipline I don't want to change. I just love Jesus. Yeah? I just want to be His disciple, but I don't want any discipline that comes along. They don't work. They don't mix. They don't match. They're connected. Discipleship and discipline. They're connected. So I don't want this false enthusiasm. I don't want weakness. I don't want shallowness. But I don't want joylessness either, do I? I don't. I spend enough of my life depressed. I want joy in this following Jesus thing. I'm sure you do too. So, in the word rest, biblically, we'll look at some definitions. The root meaning is this. It's restoration. To be rested is to be restored. To be rested is to be restored. So we have to ask ourselves the question, if I'm not rested, if I'm not restored in this area, where, in what areas and in what ways am I depleted? In other words, where am I empty? What needs to be restored? How do I get my life back? Do you ever feel like that? That it's spinning out of your control? And you go, how do I get my life back here? In what areas have I been depleted? In those areas, I need to be restored. So there is a bit of a difference in what we're talking about today with the concept of Sabbath rest that we see biblically all the way through Old Testament and New. There's a difference between Sabbath and the discipline of living daily in the rest of God. In living from or working from a place of rest instead of, quote, resting because I'm exhausted. I'm resting from my work. Instead, it's working from a place of rest. And that kind of rest is different than Sabbath rest, because Sabbath rest is like it's the weekly thing that God is talking about. It's the Sabbath law of the Old Testament, one of the 10 Commandments that was meant to give us life. You know, because he says in the 10 Commandments, don't, do. Honor your parents and remember to rest. Isn't that interesting, that wording? It sounds kind of like a parent. Huh? Don't, do. Honor and remember. Isn't it interesting that he said, remember to rest? The reason he said remember is because we so quickly forget. Yeah, you don't have to be real smart to figure that one out. Remember because it's so easy to forget. Now, he doesn't explain a lot of the other commands, but this Sabbath command he explains. He goes, okay, not just you rest, but your kids, your family, your servants, your animals, everybody's going to rest. Because when it comes to rest, we try to get around it. Don't we? I think God is very wise in saying, yeah, you have to remember to do this for your best good, but I know you're going to try to get around it. So let me add to that command. I don't just mean you. I mean all of you people who live in that house. I mean your whole family. And the list goes on. He specifies. Because for some reason, I don't know what it is, you guys, but for some reason we think we're supposed to keep going and going and going and going. There are actually a lot of reasons for that. Some of them for you, one of the reasons for you guys, your age, is just that it's that youthful thing. Well, I'm going to live forever and I've got tons of energy and I can keep doing it. But then there are religious lies, religious fallacies that we've believed as well. Things like the devil doesn't sleep, so we shouldn't either. I actually had a pastor tell me that one time. Things like, I'm going to be about the Father's business 24/7 because Jesus is worth it. Yeah, and you will die if you just work around the clock. Because we fail to understand that these human bodies, this limited piece of flesh, requires rest to function well. It requires it. It screams it. It demands it. We have to rest, you guys. So we better learn how. And there are a lot of other fallacies too, and depending on time, we may talk about a few of those. So if I'm going to get restored from wherever I'm depleted, I have to ask myself some really personal questions. And some people don't like this at all, because some people don't like the introspection, look inside, figure myself out stuff. But we need to. Because we need to know ourselves well enough, first of all, to just define, I am empty here. In this area, I don't have a thing to give. So we need to know ourselves well enough for that. But then we also need to know ourselves well enough and be honest enough that we say, I'm empty, but here's how I get my life back. If I'm empty emotionally, if you're empty emotionally, do you know how to get your life back emotionally and get more stable emotionally? Or is it just, yeah, I'm an emotional wreck and I'm going to go to bed for the next 12 hours. Don't anybody bother me. And you still wake up kind of rare, don't you? Yeah, you do. Because the emotional need wasn't cared for. You're trying to take care of an emotional need by sleeping, which is a physical remedy. If you're physically tired, you sleep. But if you're emotionally tired, what do? To get your emotional stability back, to get healed? What's it going to take? And we need to know ourselves as well. It's hard, you guys. It is really hard. I go through some of these things that we're talking about today, and I go, man, I still don't know really, I don't know perfectly what it takes for me, and I've been working at this a long time. A very long time. So, the other thing we have to recognize within ourselves is, what season are we in? What's my job now compared to my job before? Maybe this job is requiring more of you mentally when that job required more of your emotion. Then you're going to have to know yourself well enough to know, I need to make up the difference then. What season are you in? Because seasons change, and therefore rest will change. It will have to. You need different kinds of rest at different times in your life. You need more of this, less of that. It just makes sense, doesn't it? But do we ever think about it? Do we process it? Now, the Old Testament command for Sabbath was this, in a nutshell: work 6, rest 1. Work 6 days, rest 1. Yeah, it's Old Testament law, and we can't even seem to do that very well. We're still not getting the heart behind the law by saying, work 6, rest 1, but we can't even make that happen. And we have all kinds of excuses in the book, because it kind of looks like this. Well, I have these 5 days where I'm in whatever my job is, right? 5, sometimes 6 days, and I'm doing the job thing. But when do I do laundry? And when do I clean the house? And when do I study? And when do I get my life back? When do I play ping pong? When can I get out the Legos? When can I do what just makes me happy instead of working all the time? And God says, work 6 and then stop. Now, work from God's perspective, work with God's definition is this: it's a creative opportunity. That's what work is, biblically. It's a creative opportunity. But how many of us see our job that way? On a consistent, daily, regular basis. I am going for 8 hours today to a creative opportunity. To an opportunity to creatively partner with my Maker to bring His kingdom and to see His life come. Does that work if you're working 40 hours a week at Starbucks? Or at YWAM? Or anything else you're doing? Going to university? A creative opportunity. So you see straight away that we have this shift we need to make in our thinking, right? My work, because I'm made in the image of God and He is a worker, and He defined His work as the 6 days of creation. Then He says, okay, what do we need to do to change this so that I view work as a creative opportunity? That'll mess with your thinking for a while. And it should. Because it's not Western style thinking, is it? Not so much. We think that creativity and work are reserved for just a few jobs. But from God's perspective, work is a creative opportunity. So what needs to change in my thinking to start seeing it that way? The time of rest then, the biblical model, in other words, God resting on the seventh day, not because he needed to, but as a model for us, and also as a celebration of what he had created. That's the whole picture that we have in the first 3 chapters of Genesis. God celebrated what he had made. He enjoyed it. And something in us often pushes against that, of this day is for my enjoyment, like a 24-hour time frame for me to kick back and enjoy life and feel like I can breathe again and not work but enjoy the fruit of my work. This is not common thinking. And it's not common thinking in ministry either, is it? I'm supposed to be on 24/7. Ready, in season and out of season. We can even pull scriptures to prove it. But it goes against the heart of the command. The heart of the command is, remember to rest. And then he goes on to say, God goes on to say, even in your busiest times, and he defined that as harvest and planting, even in your very busiest times. Work 6, rest 1, set it aside, rest, so that it's routine, it's part of your life, get your life back. So let's talk about what that is specifically then. To rest means to stop. It just means to stop and get restored. Stop and get restored. There it is in a nutshell. Stop and get restored. Stop what you've been doing that's been sucking the life out of you. Get restored. Get your life back. Let's do something. Choose an activity that puts life back into you. Does that make sense? Stop doing what's pulling the life out of you, what's exhausting you in a variety of ways, and do something to get your life back in those specific ways. You know, have you ever thought about what music, those of you who are musicians, what music would be like without rests? If it was just constant, it'd drive us nuts. And to be a musician, I mean, when you breathe, right? Where's the expression? One of the bands I used to play with, this tenor saxophonist, he was just amazing. And he would tell us over and over and over, less is more. When it comes to music, less is more. Be careful that we're not filling in the gaps all the time. Just because there's a bit of space doesn't mean you need to do your favorite riff. Be careful, less is more, because it's the less that makes music come alive, not just the sound. It's the resting. Same with us. I had the privilege of being in Israel the first time and participating from afar, observing an 8-hour Shabbat meal with a Jewish family, an Orthodox Jewish family. It was so fun, you guys. They all came together and they had a really long table. There must have been at least 40 people in this family. Every age imaginable, from the little tiny newborn babies to the old guys. And they lit candles. I mean, when it was time for the thing to start, bam, it started. Everything else stopped. And suddenly, everybody's even physical posture changed. You could see their shoulders that were here just go, and they started telling stories and laughing, and they'd eat, and they lit candles, and they'd dance, and they'd eat some more, and they'd tell stories some more, and they'd eat some more. They ate a lot. And one at a time throughout the several hours, each person, I'm not very good at guessing ages, but I would guess maybe under 21 or so, each person who was younger would make their way to the patriarch in the family and kneel down. He was an old guy, and they'd get down. He didn't stand up, but they'd get down right near him, and you'd watch, and he'd talk to them. They'd laugh about something. You could see he was asking questions, and then he would put his hand on them and bless them and pray over them. Every week. Can you imagine a blessing like that? Having the opportunity for that, where you know On Saturday, I get Grandpa's blessing. On Saturday, he sees me. And all the rest of the days of the week, he loves me and prays for me. I mean, I wish our culture would bring back some of this stuff, would bring some of this stuff in the church, that we would be people of blessing intentionally. But this is part of the Sabbath. It's part of rest. It's to set yourself up, to bless yourself in such a way that you choose restorative enjoyment. Set yourself up for it, which is going to require something else of us. To not just know where we're depleted and not just know what fills us back up, but to plan for our rest times. You go, but then that takes the rest out of it because it's one more thing to plan. But if you make a habit of this, if you learn yourself and you know what season you're in, it won't take much thought. Here's what I have found out, though, you guys. When I'm in a really rested place, full of life, restored, that's when I make the list of what I know I enjoy. Because when I'm exhausted, I can't even remember what I enjoy. And then I just get mad. I do. Oh, it's a day of rest, I can't think of one thing to do. And I go back to my list and go, oh yeah, I do like that. I forgot I like to take walks. I forgot. Think I'll go outside. I forgot I really like shrimp. I think I'll go buy myself a shrimp dinner. I forgot I like ping pong, and I have a ping pong table in my house. I think I'll go play. Because when I'm not rested, I forget what I love. I forget what restores me. I forget what's enjoyable about life. I even forget a lot of times who I like. Because when it's rest time, don't hang out with people who suck the life out of you. When it's rest time, don't hang out with people you don't like. That's a setup for more frustration. There are plenty of people out there you're not exactly thrilled about being with when you're not rested. You know what I mean, right? So don't set yourself up for failure and more irritation. It's okay to laugh. Set yourself up for life-giving people. If you're going to be with people, make them people you like and who like you. And you know who they are. Straight away, 3 or 4 people went into your mind as soon as I said life-sucking people. You know who I'm talking about, right? And life-giving people, if we think life-giving people, the list gets a lot shorter when we're irritable, right? It's good. Well, no, I really don't want to be with anybody on the planet, except maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe, but not really. We have to be this honest. Because if rest is restorative, set yourself up. Set yourself up, which is going to take strategic planning. Plan ahead. Tomorrow I have this chunk of time, and here's what I'm going to do. And if that means you save a little extra money so you can eat out and don't have to go into your own kitchen, why not? Why not? I would go so far as to say this, since everybody in this room, I don't know about on the camera, but everybody in this room at least is in missions to some degree or the other. I would say, are you support raising so that you have the money to get your soul restored? Or is it always so tight you just can't even do anything extra? You don't have the gas money to drive to the mountains. You don't have the cup of coffee money to go to Starbucks. You don't. We have to think about this, because if we're depleted in our souls, how effective are we going to be in ministry anyway? The more depleted we are, the more the life is sucked out of us, the less effective we're going to be, and the less we're going to enjoy the call of God on our life. Makes sense, doesn't it? It just makes sense. So I challenge you guys who are in missions. I challenge you, support raise. Or you who are not going to be in missions, I challenge you to budget differently so that you have enough margin in your budget that you can Take that road trip to the mountains for the day. I tell you, if mountains restore you and you steal the mountains from yourself, you'll forget who you are. You'll forget who you are. But if you do get restored, if you do choose what you know is life-giving for you, you can be gone 6 hours to the mountains and come back and feel like you've been on holiday for a week. It really does work that way. But be strategic. Know yourself. Make your list. And then make yourself do it. Make yourself follow through. Set the time aside. Is this making sense, you guys? If I'm going to choose, let's stay with the mountain illustration. If I'm going to choose the mountains and say yes to the mountains, then I have to say no to something else. And that's where it gets hard for us. If I'm going to say yes to restoration, I have to say no to what is going to even take more life from me. That's called growing up. It's called discipline. It's called choosing what's best for you instead of what's good for you. It's good to do my laundry, but it's best to go swimming for an hour at the gym. Yeah? So, I don't know, go swimming in your clothes and wash them at the same time. Maybe. If I've been, let's say, work 6, rest 1. If I've been working 6 and it's time for rest, and we'll get to day-to-day rest here in a second. But if I've been working 6 and it's time for rest, then we just now decided I have to say no to this in order to say yes to rest, right? In other words, here it is. Something has to change. You can't take your day of rest and still do your dishes and still do your laundry and still study this and still work there and still answer 50 emails and still... Something has to change. You have to stop something to get restored. You've got to stop. You've got to stop that stuff that sucked the life out of you. And you guys, we make excuse after excuse after excuse, don't we? This is my day off, and I'm just going to get caught up on my inbox. Is there any such thing as getting caught up in your inbox? I always feel like that thing is yelling at me. Always. And the thing about emails is, if you answer one, you get 3 back. Every time. I don't know how that works. It's like they're being fruitful and multiplying in my computer or something. I don't know. It drives me nuts. There has to be a change of focus. Listen, there has to be a change of activity. Did you hear that? I have to change my focus and I have to change my activity if I'm going to rest. Picture that. You need to get this. If I'm going to rest, my activity has to change and my focus has to change. Let me give you an example. I turned 65 this year. I've been playing the piano actively almost daily since I was 7. And I taught piano for 35 years. Had a little music in my life. Both of my sons are professional musicians. Been playing on worship teams since I was 12. Literally. So, I know I like the piano. No question about that. I like the sound and I like the ability. It's fun to be coordinated. It's fun to make beautiful music. I really like to play. But I have realized with myself that if I sit down and play and tell myself, this is something you enjoy that's restorative to you, but my brain is answering emails or preparing the teaching for today or something like that, I get up and I am more irritated because I'm so dissatisfied with the quality of my playing. Why am I dissatisfied with the quality of my playing? Because I didn't focus on it. My fingers were doing it, my brain doesn't. I can do it automatically, but I wasn't focused on it. If I focus and give my whole self to playing, when I get up from the piano bench, I'm restored. Honestly, I'm a happier person. So you must change your focus if you're going to get rest. You must change your activity. Stop doing what you've been doing so much of that sucked the life out of you. Do something different and focus all of your energy on that. Even if you know how to do it in your sleep, focus all of your energy on that. Something that's restorative. Does that make sense? And so we're back to the discipline word, right here. I have to discipline my mind to stay focused, even if it's something I know I enjoy. I discipline my mind to stay focused. I do the same thing. I keep using the illustration of ping pong because I have no words for how much I love ping pong. It makes me happier than just about anything. I learned when I was 12, my dad started, I wouldn't say teach me because he never taught me how, he just played me. And he was so good. He was amazing, an amazing player. He was one of those, he would hold the ball in the palm of his hand flat like this. He's not a tall guy, he was a short guy. And he'd lift up his shoulder like this, and he held the paddle like this instead of the side, he held it like this, and he'd go. And I started shaking because it would either come 1,000 miles an hour and suck itself into leave welts on my stomach, or it would hit the very corner of the table, just go like a bullet, and I couldn't even see it. Or it would just, it was all the same movement. He'd go like this and go bang, and it would just drop right on the other side of the net. And I have arms this long, you know, and I can't reach that. From the time I was 12, and I played him a lot, till the time I was 18, I made 2 points. He never taught me anything, but I could beat anybody I knew. My brothers would bet their friends on me, my older brothers. It was so funny. They'd say, I bet my stupid little sister can beat you in ping pong. And they go, yeah, right. And I'd serve. Oh, crap. And then I'd play them and whoop them. My brothers would make a lot of money, and I got the glory. I got the glory. It was really fun. Anyway, nothing makes me happy. No sport in the world makes me as happy as ping pong. No sport. But if I don't focus while I'm playing, I leave unhappy with myself. It doesn't make me happy. If I focus, literally, within about 30 seconds, I am laughing out loud and hooping and hollering and yeah around my bedroom by myself because I play the wall. Reflexes, really good for the reflexes. I mean, it's just about this long. I go, and if I don't focus, then I just get frustrated. If I do, oh, there's life. I change what I'm doing and I change my focus. It's life-giving, it's restorative. I go and play ping pong for 5 minutes a day, and it's like I just took a full day off. I get that happy. I really do. What have you got that's restorative in your life? What have you got that's restorative? It'll get your life back for you in different ways, different times. So here's an interesting thing. Jesus modeled for us the discipline of rest. He modeled because, first of all, he was a really good Jewish man. He took his Sabbaths once a week. Took his Sabbaths, 24 hours. He also celebrated the festivals, 7 parties a year, yeah. He also did the daily hours of prayer, like Jewish people did in the temple. But during his 3 to 3.5 years of ministry, what we have recorded in the Gospels, which is less than 100 days of his 12,000-day life, by the way, what we have recorded in the Gospels is 21 times away, in addition to daily prayers, which are restorative spiritually, Sabbath days, full 24-hour chunks, and festivals, 7 parties a year. 21 times he got away in 3 to 3.5 years of ministry. And you guys are, right now, I can watch your face. You're calculating. I can see the how many years have I been doing this? How many intentional times have I gotten away for the purpose of restoration? And I see the zeros come up when you're... So there were 4 reasons Jesus got away. These 21 times, there were 4 reasons he got away. One was to rest. Just rest. Let's get away and rest a while, he told his disciples. One was to pray. So that's spiritual restoration. Physical restoration is rest, right? Spiritual restoration to pray. He got away from everybody and everything to equip, to make disciples of his disciples. And he also got away just to be with Father and align himself. Not my will, but yours. Not my will, but yours. Am I in line here? Am I in line here? It was restorative to him. It was restorative. So here's a reason, a few reasons, that rest is such a challenge for us. Because when we have to admit, some of what we need is just stillness and silence. We'll talk about that in a minute. We do need that. But when I get still and silent and alone, I realize how lonely I am. When I get still and silent and alone, I get agitated because I feel like I need a distraction. I need to do something. I need to check my phone. What do I even think about? We get really nervous. And what that does is expose us, and we don't like to be exposed. Our addictions come to the surface, don't they? Our addictions scream at us, and we call it bored. We have so much thinking that has to be changed. The relationships that are unresolved or that need work, when we're still and quiet, we get reminded of those almost immediately. Scared. It scares us. So we don't like to set ourselves up for that. We get restless, and we don't like that feeling. Restlessness makes us feel anxious, right? We don't like that feeling. So why would I choose this if I'm feeling? Because taking silence times, taking stillness times, gives God space to speak. If we don't take them, he doesn't often get the space to speak. And it's when the restlessness surfaces that we go, God, what are you saying? It's when the anxiety creates tension that we go, God, what are you saying? What is it? It's when the relationship comes up and we go, I really haven't forgiven, have I? Lord, let's deal with that. It's when my loneliness drives me to him and I pour out my heart and say, I don't know how much longer I can take this being alone stuff. And we get real and we get honest and we give God space to speak. Otherwise, you know as well as I know, he doesn't get much of that. Are you giving God space to speak by being still? Because if God is anything, he's a restorer. And when he speaks and we respond, you get restored. Why would we ever say no to that? You know why? Because we don't like the feelings that it brings. We don't like the feelings. I wonder if we don't have ourselves an idol called feelings. Where we bow our knee to feelings. Instead of to the king who said, I've created you for stillness, for silence. Give me space. Am I your God or not? Okay, so the discipline that's required in rest is to keep the restful places restful. Let me say that again. The discipline that is required in rest, the discipline that is required in rest is to keep the restful spaces restful. We want them to stay restful, to get restful. We want to be able to be at rest with ourselves. I mean, it sounds kind of dumb to say it that way, but isn't it true? Don't you want to be at peace with yourself? Don't you want to be at rest with yourself? Don't you want to be able to rest with you? And then we have to learn how, because we don't know. Got to be honest about this stuff. So, I need these restful spaces in every area of my life. I want to show you this. I wrote it down this way. A life that's too busy is when there's not space to listen to God's voice. A life that's too busy is when there's not space to listen to God's voice. And we just can't be living faster than Holy Spirit is leading, you guys. We got to keep pace with him. Keep in step with the Spirit. Keep pace with him. And he is not more, bigger, better, faster all the time. He's just not. So, to be rested is to repose. It's to lean back. It's to put all of your weight on. It's to stop sweating. Basically, stop sweating. It's to stop. It's to stop to celebrate. I stop that to celebrate this. Or I stop that to celebrate that and live it. You guys who do one school after another, who do one event after another, one project after another, do you take time to celebrate what just happened? Or have you already started planning the next one in the middle of this one and the celebration never happens? It's not God's way. God's way is to celebrate creative opportunities and work. Celebrate, enjoy, thankful, party, do whatever, but celebrate the goodnesses of God. Celebrate the goodnesses of God. The other side of this in our culture is that we confuse rest and laziness. Rest is not laziness if it's purposeful and if it's strategic, based on where you're depleted. Let's say you've been sitting in front of your computer all week. You know what you really need? The thing that would be the most life-giving for you? Go outside and, I don't know, run 5 miles or chop some wood or climb a 14er or something. But move that body of yours. If instead you retire to the couch with a remote, you'll come off that couch more exhausted. So rest is not lazy if it's purposefully and strategically restorative. Rest is not laziness if it's purposefully and strategically restorative. What's depleted? What do you need to do to get your life back? What feeds the opposite? So, practically speaking then, we're almost done here. This is Milo. Milo's been with us all week in DTS, and this is Milo's body, and this is his soul, and this is his redeemed spirit. Hasn't always been like that. If you read Romans 6, 7, and 8, you'll understand. This is his redeemed spirit, a spirit that is joined to the Spirit of God. Milo is like me and you. He has a mind, emotions, and a will, and this is his earth suit. He lives in this piece of flesh. His soul lives in there, and his spirit lives in there. I don't know how to explain that, but there you go. So, what part of Milo needs to be restored? Physically? Oh yeah, we're all in right there, right? If I just got more sleep. But you see, the problem is, if I'm emotionally exhausted and I'm trying to get enough sleep, sleep only meets the physical need for rest. I might be less irritable with you for a while tomorrow if I sleep more tonight, but it won't last very long because my emotional self is still drained. Yeah? It's like you guys who get super hungry. It'll help you a little with your irritability if you eat a little bit. Of course it will. But is it really dealing with the attitudes and why you're really irritated and why you got irritated to begin with and that? Sometimes it's physical, but not all the time. We have to be honest enough with that stuff. So here's the question I want you to think of right now. And you can take notes on yourself however you want to do this. But if the question is, where am I depleted? I mean, just think about your life right now. Where are you depleted? Where are you empty? Where do you feel like the life's been sucked out of you? And what restores you in that specific area? So physically, if you feel that way, then sleep solves the need. If you need rest, sleep solves the physical need for rest, but not other areas. Not other areas. I can rest in one area and still be depleted in the others. Make sense? Okay. What about if you're mentally? Are you mentally depleted? I know Isaac and Colin can relate to this at least, if not some of the rest of you, probably Daniel. When you study and study and study and study and study something and your brain just feels like mush. It's just, you know, I don't have mental capacity to focus on anything. What do you need to do to get your mental sharpness back? How do you need to rest your mind? Or, here's one, if you've been making so many decisions that your brain just goes, I don't want to think about this anymore. What do you need to do to get some rest so that when you return to those decisions, you're more alert, you're more alive, you have more clarity. You must know you. You must know what works for you. Does it take time? Yeah. To figure all this out? Oh yeah. Is it worth it? Please. Get it now. Don't wait till you're 40 to start figuring this stuff out. It's so not worth it. 50 or 60. Okay. Emotionally. This is a really hard one for us, isn't it? How do you get emotionally restored? Man, Holy Spirit's really got his work here for us, because sometimes emotional restoration comes from simply forgiving somebody. Sometimes I get my emotional life back when I just simply have a good cry. And so I manipulate myself by putting on a chick flick or something that I know I'm going to go. I lock the door, I pull the shades, but I do it. You know? I do what's necessary. Be honest. What do you need? How are you going to get that emotional stability back? Lots of times emotional pain needs to be healed. How can you set yourself up for what you know will heal you, even if it's just a little bit more today than yesterday? What works? What works? Then we have spiritual life. Milo's spiritual life. Do you ever feel like you just minister so much that you feel spiritually gone, dry, wasted, or you've been challenged by Holy Spirit in these spiritual areas so much you do? I don't have anything left. There's only one thing that restores us spiritually. Only one thing. And that's personal time with Jesus. With the Father. With the Spirit. Not intercession. Not studying for a teaching. One-on-one be time. Just being with Him. And nobody else. Just be. Not asking for anything, not praying about the future, not trying to get ideas from Holy Spirit about how in the world you're going to write that next newsletter or whatever. Just being and enjoying Him. Not working hard at worshiping right. Just be with Him. This is a challenge for us. But that's the only thing that meets the need. That is the only thing. Then we have this part of Milo's body. We need to figure out ways that we're going to get restored. Sensory ways. Do you ever feel like you're feeling what you feel, what you hear, what you see, what you smell, what you taste is just enough is enough? Enough is enough. Do you ever feel like I have eaten so much in the last 2 days that I need to go a very long time before I eat something again? I don't know. I can relate to that. Can anybody else? Please tell me you can relate to this. Okay. That I just need a break from food already. Feel like that? I just need a break from noise. And we go to Starbucks. We go to a coffee shop where the machines are going. John, order's ready. We go. Go someplace quiet. Man. We have these, we're on overload in the sensory department. If I look at one more screen, and yet we have spare time, and so we go to the screen, you know? We have 3 seconds in the bathroom, and we pull out our phone while we're sitting there. What? Give yourself a break from the sensory stuff. Stop the input already. We are the most over-informed, under-reflective generation in the history of the world. Because we keep taking in. Shut it down. And get your life back. Get restored. But you have to know yourself how to do that. Then we have the whole social thing. Anybody else an introvert? Anybody else just get the life sucked right out of them when you spend too much time with people? Yep. So that you pass somebody in the grocery store and you go. I was like that when I was school teaching. I'd see a little kid randomly, like a week after the end of the school year, and I felt myself go. Sometimes I felt like that. I really did. But socially, go away. Go somewhere. Get out of here. Walk around the park. Do something. But leave this place. Leave your house. Leave people. Do something. Crawl under your bed. I don't know. But be alone. Even if you're not an introvert, you need alone time. So God gives space. One-on-one, exclusive space. And then we have the whole concept of work, which I will call creative, a need for creative rest, a need to stop being productive. Anybody else a type A driven, task-oriented, performance-oriented, accomplishment-driven person besides me? Yeah, stop it. Repent and turn from your wicked. No. We just need to stop being productive and be okay with being human beings instead of human doings. Need to be okay with that. All right? So, here's the question when it comes to, and then we're done. Here's the question about when it comes to what am I going to do to get my life back and get restored. Does what you're doing energize you for what's next in your day? Talking about a daily thing. What you're choosing to do right now in these 5 minutes of free time or 20 minutes or 2 hours, is it going to energize me for what's coming next in my day or what's coming on my next day? Does it energize me? Does the screen always energize you? Then don't go to that option and think you're going to come out of it rested on the other side. And then here's the follow-up question for that. Or do you need, after doing that 5 minutes or whatever, 2 hours that you have, or do you need to be energized in a counterfeit way, like caffeine? Coming away from those times of daily rest that we have. Do you need to be still energized in a counterfeit way? Because you didn't get your life back, so you need 2 more cups of coffee or that Red Bull. Or whatever. This requires a lot of honesty on our part, doesn't it? Requires a lot of honesty. It requires valuing our bodies, our souls, and our spirits enough to do what's best for us. And to value God in us and the way He's designed us to need rest and not counterfeit stimulation. Yeah? These are hard lessons. And it will take a while. You're not going to get it tomorrow. But please start making some choices today to get it. You won't regret it. You won't regret it. Will it require discipline? Yeah. Yeah. But that's what discipleship is. It requires discipline as well as relationship. Not just one or the other. All right? Father, thank you. Thank you for teaching us. Thank you for wanting what's best for us. You are a good God who wants what's best for us. Thank you. Thank you that you designed us with a specific plan and potential for strategy. Thank you, Holy Spirit, that you will help us figure out what our strategies and our purposes are and what we need to pursue for restoration. Help us to know ourselves. Father, we ask you for courage to look inside and say, Where have I been lying to myself about this? Do I just simply need to go to bed earlier and life will be much easier? Will be much more productive or whatever? Do I just need to discipline myself in an easy way like that? Or Father, have I got some really tough choices to make here? Holy Spirit, you are the best at communication. May we give you space to speak. Not just for our sakes, but for yours. For yours, so that we can be more effective at making your name great on the earth. So we can be fully human, fully alive for your glory and for our health. In Jesus' name, amen.